Contour drawing is a great way to increase your hand-eye coordination, which is really what you're doing when you're drawing. You have to look at something out there and transmit it to the paper. All right? If you concentrate on just looking at something and drawing it just the way you see it, then you're likely to have a fragmented drawing, and also it's going to take you a lot longer to learn to draw. On the other hand, if you'll do a contour drawing, which means you look at the subject and draw without looking at the paper. Just keep looking at the subject and feel with your hand what your eye is seeing at the subject. Looking at the paper only when you have to lift the pencil off the paper and start at a new place. There's a pot over there, so I'm going to look at it and do my drawing. There's a little knob up at the top, all right? So I'll just draw the little knob up at the top without looking at the paper, just at the pot. All right? Now, next I want to draw the lid. Okay, so I can look at the paper so I know where to start again. All right, now here the rest of that lid comes over here like this, and I do a little round thing like this, and I come back around here again like this. All right, now I'll stop, and I want to draw the outer perimeter of that lid. Okay, up here. It comes around like this, and that goes around like this, and about around here like this. Now this isn't going to be a great work of art that we have here. It's only a training exercise. All right, now let's see. Let's draw. I'm going to look at the paper now to see where the pencil is going to start, and I want to use this second contour around here like this. Okay, now I'm going to look here to see where the paper is, and then down there, and I have a little bit of a thing here that I need to draw. Okay, look at the paper again, and I want to draw this other lip down here like this. It's going to come right about up to here. Okay, I want to look at the paper and draw that line. All right, now there's a handle there, so I'll look at the paper to see where the pencil is going to start. There, 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 and here comes the handle here like this, and it comes down here like this and stops there. All right, at the end of it is a little hole. I'll look at that. Okay, now down here, I have another little, here's the edge of the pot here. Okay, now I'm going to change direction, so I have to look at the paper here, and I'm going to change direction like this. Now I want to come back up to the pot, so I'll look up here to see where it is. All right, I see where I've got to go over here a little further. All right, now I'll come back up to the pot. Now there's a little handle there, so I want to start right here. Okay, so I'll do this, and then I'll do a little handle about like that. All right, over here is another handle, so I'll start here, go that handle there, and I'll put this thing up here like this and follow the handle up here like this, and stop, come around, and go back along that to draw the top of the handle. Okay. Now, this isn't a great work of art. It isn't meant to be a great work of art. What it is a training exercise to train you to follow with your pencil whatever you see out there. Now, you see, if I did a drawing like this, if I kept looking at that and doing this and doing that and doing this, okay, I wouldn't have trained myself nearly as well as staring at it and making that pencil follow what my eye sees. Another fine exercise is a gesture drawing, so-called because what you're interested in is not just a part of the object, but the whole piece, the big picture, the gesture. So that in this figure, we wouldn't be interested in just the nose or the hair or just the shoulder or this, but rather the big piece, the whole gesture, where the torso is over here and the legs are coming down here, like that. It's drawing this way forces you to paint or to draw broadly and boldly, and it's more flowing, and so therefore much more interesting than drawing. Just a tight, small little piece. Also, you cover much more of the object in a fraction of the time that you would cover it if you tried to do a precise rendering of this subject. All right, now when you do this, don't hold the pencil like this as you would a pen or a pencil, which is what you're most comfortable doing. Don't hold it that way, because if you do, you just get this much motion. If you instead will hold it this way, like that, then you're forced to use your wrist and your arm and your shoulder and your whole body, in fact, which helps you get that flowing drawing, which works into or makes you produce a nice flowing work. All right, so here's my subject here. And I'm going to start with the head up here at the top, just a little circle, just show me to outline that for me, to tell me where it is. And I'm just going to do a fast little light line drawing here just to tell me where the whole, to go over the whole figure so that I get the proportions correct and I don't go off the page with it. All right, so then see, I'm on the leg over here, the near leg, and that near leg comes down here like this, and it's there, and then here's the far leg, which is directly underneath this torso. Okay, so then here is going to be an arm, which is going to come down here like this, and it's resting against a chair, and then here's the other arm, which is back behind the model, goes away, comes back up here, and here's the other hand here. Okay, I pretty well got it tied down to where I want to put it, so now I'll put a few more lines in here, or draw it a little more precisely so that we can tell that it's a human here. And so we'll start with the hair. Here's the mass of hair here, and it comes down here like this, and here's some more of it here. It hangs down here like that, and then there's a nose. No precise rendering anywhere, and here just enough to tell that it's a figure. All right, now here's the shoulder, and here's another one here. Here comes this arm down to there, and the other one here. And all I'm after here is just the gesture, the important part of this figure. Nothing precise about it. It doesn't do you a bit of good to do the world's greatest rendering of a figure if the gesture is wrong. If you don't get the gesture correct, it's going to be a stiff figure. It won't look like what you say it is. All right, the hand's not terribly important, just enough to show you that there's a hand there. Here's the torso here. Let's have a little of this, a little of that. All right, here comes the leg down here, like this, like that, over here. And then here's the other leg here. There's the foot. All right, now, there's the other leg that comes down here. Don't try to be precise. Just cover the whole area, the whole piece, just as fast as you can. Being careful enough to make it look like what it is. There. Okay, so now to make it a little more interesting, rather than leave those widths of line all the same, we'll make some of it darker here, or broader lines. Put a few wrinkles in there. Little shadow down here, a little more up there, a little this here, and there's the gesture. All right, now, this gesture drawing doesn't apply only to figures. It applies also to buildings. Because the building has a gesture. What that is the thrust of the building along. Is it a long linear building, a horizontal building, or a tall one? Are there big pieces coming off of it? This is what you'd want to do. So a gesture drawing with the building would look like this. Here's a big piece there. There's the roof. Here's a chimney up there. Here's something else coming off of the top of it. Here would be the building, the rest of the building here. Here would be coming down here. A shed off of it here like this, maybe. A few windows in here, another shed here, drawn in like that, so that what we're after is just the overall gesture of this building, rather than one of these things. If you do it this way, you'll develop a precise, broken piece of work, rather than the overall flowing piece, which is so attractive. Thank you, Donna. A key to drawing objects is to first reduce them to basic shapes. And there are only a few basic shapes. For instance, there's a cube, or I should say there's just a square would be one shape. All right, then we could make a cube out of it. There's a circle, or it could be a sphere, or there might be a cylinder, a triangle, a triangle with volume like that, or it might be one of these, a modification of that. Any number of basic shapes like this. So the idea is to look at your object, whatever it is that you're drawing, reduce it to these shapes first, and then modify it to fit whatever it is that you're drawing. For instance, I want to draw a flower. All right, so I'd start off with an oval there. All right, then Let's say here's the center of the flower, a daisy. All right, now we'll have this. We'll make the daisy follow this shape. Okay, simple way to draw a flower. Or let's say I'm going to draw a barn with a silo. Well, what's a barn? All right, it's going to be a rectangle, so all right, here's the rectangle first. And on top of it would be maybe a triangular shape. So let's put that triangular shape up there next, like this. And there's going to be a, let's say a silo is attached to it. All right, what's a silo? A silo is a cylinder. So let's have a little cylinder over here. All right, now, those are the basic shapes. Now let's draw the barn. Okay, the barn has, say, a hip roof to it, so let's say that the inside of this is going to do like this, and it'll come down here like that. All right, so now we'll have the roof do this, come up here like this. Then here's the other hip roof here, other hip of the roof there. Then it comes down here. This edge of the roof will come down here and do that. All right, now here's the side of the barn, here's this side of the barn, here's the top edge of the barn here, following my shape. Here's the rest of it here. Let's say there might be some kind of a little shape up at the top of it. I could draw a square up there first, but it's going to be exactly the same thing for the drawing. So I wouldn't have anything there. Okay, here's the bottom edge of it. Here would be the door in here, and a few other things, and so on, a few windows there, so on. Okay, now here's this cylinder. All right, I want to draw some curved lines up here at the top and make them a little straighter down here. So just draw them in here. And you see they're going to be closer together as they come down here to the ground. All right, now what I'm interested in is this edge out here. So, all right, here's my silo. Here's this edge. Here's the other edge of it. Now I'm only going to draw this piece there. There's that one there, this one here, because that's all we see on this side of the silo. And here would be the top of it. Maybe I would draw one of these things first up there. Okay, so one of those up here. And then here would be my silo up there. This would come down here. And like that. If we were doing a figure, first for the head, not a head, but an oval. All right, for the neck, not a neck, but a cylinder here. For the torso, a modified rectangle, here like this. For the arms, a series of cylinders. For the hand, just an oval here with fingers. Here's another arm here. Just a cylinder. Here's one cylinder, there's another cylinder. And maybe a circle down here for the hips. All right, now here's another cylinder for the legs. There's another leg there. Okay, now once we have that much in there, it's an easy matter just to, well, let's see, we want the face to face, want the figure to face this way. Let's put a line like that. All right, now it's going to be facing that way. We want the eyes to be looking down. Okay, let's do this. All right, now we have, right there where that X is the direction the face is looking. So there would be a nose, there would be a mouth there. Here's where the eyes would be, there and there. Then the rest of the figure. The hair comes here, comes down there. Then the shoulders would be here. Here's where the arms would be. And we just modify that according to all of this drawing that all the practice we've had in drawing figures. And we modify that shoulder to a shoulder, the figure, the cylinder here to the upper part of an arm, and this cylinder to the bottom part of the arm. There's a hand there. Then this oval will be converted to the hips. This cylinder would be converted to a leg, and so on. An artist can hardly draw anything without a knowledge of perspective, particularly when drawing buildings. Now, you don't have to know everything an architect knows about perspective in order to draw or to paint buildings, but it sure does help to have a knowledge of at least 1 point or 2 point perspective. Without it, you're stuck with drawing or painting only a side view or front view of a building. For instance, this. Here is a building without perspective. So, okay, we would have this kind of thing. There's the building, there's the roof, And then let's say there's a shed on the back, and maybe we would have a window in here and a few boards and so on, and a chimney or something there on the roof. Okay, that's all we could draw. All our buildings would have to be in that plane. Now, with perspective, we have an infinite variety of buildings that we can use. When dealing with perspective, the first thing you should think of is the horizon, because we're going to use something called vanishing points. And the vanishing points are always on the horizon. What they are your eye level, wherever your eye is when you're looking at something. And where your eye is always where the horizon is. Okay, and I'm going to show you something with 2-point perspective, which means 2 vanishing points. One over here, over as far to the edge of the paper as I can get it, and another one over here, as far to the edge of the paper as I can get it, and they're on the horizon. And remember, this is where your eye is. So I'm going to show you a house that's going to be sitting right on this horizon. It's what it's going to look like if you were laying on the ground, or let's say a worm's eye view of the house. All right, the next step is this. We'll draw some lines from this vanishing point, which you could do with a very light pencil, or anything that you can erase later on. All right, there are some lines going to that vanishing point. All right, now here's another vanishing point on this side. So some lines to that vanishing point. Now, let's draw the house. Okay. The house is going to be on the horizon. So this being the horizon, let's make it look like the horizon, or it's going to be the ground right here. So here's some grass. This is what the house is going to be sitting upon. All right. Where these lines intersect here, where they go from this direction to that direction, is going to be the corner of the house. Okay. Now here's the front of the house here. That's the front. Here's the side of the house here. All right. Now, anytime I draw any shape that has horizontal lines, or if I have any horizontal lines, these lines must follow, on this front of the house, must follow these lines that I have going towards this vanishing point. Anytime I have a horizontal shape or horizontal lines over on this wall of the building, they all must go towards this one. All right, let's see how it works out. So here's the front of the building. Here's a horizontal line, let's say where the roof starts. So that has to follow this line up here. Okay, now here's the roof up here. Now this is an oblique line, so we're not concerned with these horizontal lines here. There's one there, and here's another here. All right, now this is the edge of the roof. Also an oblique line, so we're not concerned with these lines. An oblique line, so we're not concerned with them. Okay, now let's say we have a little bit of a window up here. We're not concerned with these lines there. It's not a horizontal shape or a horizontal line. Okay, let's have a door in here. All right, vertical line, we're not concerned with these lines. But now the top of this door is a horizontal line, so it must follow these lines. Here's a vertical line, I'm not concerned with it. Here's an oblique line, we're not concerned with it. Now here comes a horizontal line. The bottom edge of this door must follow these lines. Here's a vertical line, the inside of the door. We're not concerned with any of these lines. Okay, so now let's get up here to the top of this roof. Now the top edge of this roof must follow these lines up here. So let's do that. Just there you are. They pretty much follow those lines. Here's the bottom edge of the roof, which is a horizontal line. Just as the top edge of that roof is a horizontal shape, so is the bottom edge, and it must follow those lines. Okay, here's the other end of the roof. It's an oblique line. We're not concerned with these lines. All right, so let's say, what are we going to have here? A window. All right, here's a window. Horizontal line, we don't care about the vanishing point lines. Another horizontal line, we don't care about it. Here's the top edge of the window, just like the top edge of the roof. It must follow these lines. Here's the bottom edge. It's the bottom of a horizontal shape, must follow these lines. All right, here's the inside of the window, horizontal line, we don't care. Here's it's a vertical line, so we don't care about these lines. A horizontal line must follow this line, and this will be a window. Okay, so there's a window there. All right, now, let's say that we have some boards in here, some horizontal boards. Okay, on this face in the front of the house, they must follow these lines. Okay, so here we are. There are the boards. Now you see how they fan out? They're not horizontal. They're at this angle here. They increasingly go towards a level horizon down here. And so that's what the boards must do. The same with this. They're increasingly, all of these lines point towards that vanishing point. All right, now here are the boards on this side of the building. They've got to have to do the same thing. Down where the horizon is, they're horizontal with the horizon. But as we come up, they're following these. We're following these lines, and so they're all pointing towards this thing over here, that vanishing point over there. And so they'll do this. Up here on this roof, let's say we have a few shingles. All right, they're going to do this. They must all follow these lines, which is to say they'll follow the lines that we already have in there. These shingles will do this. Let's put a chimney on it. Okay, a chimney has a horizontal line. Let's start with a horizontal line here. All right, we're not concerned with these vanishing point lines because, with the vertical line here, we're not concerned with the vanishing point lines because it's a vertical line. All right, here's the side of the chimney here, vertical line. We don't care about these vanishing point lines. Here's the other side of it, vertical line, so we're not concerned with it. Now, here's the horizontal top of the chimney. Now we must be concerned with these vanishing point lines. Okay, this side is facing is the same face as this. This is the front of the house, front of the chimney. So we must use these lines. Okay, there's the top of the chimney. Follows these lines. Here's the side of the chimney. Must follow these lines. Like that. Here's the bottom. This is the bottom of this shape. So it's a horizontal line. Must follow these lines. Okay, now this is an oblique line here. So we're not concerned with this. All right, and there's our chimney. And all of it in perspective. This is how the house would look if we were lying on the ground looking at it, or as a worm would see it. Now here's the same building done in a perspective as it would be if you were standing on the ground looking straight across at it. It's the same thing. Here's the horizon over here, and there are the two vanishing points on either end of the horizon, but now some of the building is below the horizon and some is above it. All right, for that reason then, here we have these lines going into that vanishing point, and we have them down here also. Because the reason is we raised the vanishing point somewhat. Before, it was down here. Now we raise it up here, so we need these lines down here. Here is the face of the building. Must follow those vanishing point lines over here, like this. Here is the side of the building, same thing. Follows those vanishing point lines over here for the same reason. Now here's another perspective. How the house would look if you were standing on a cliff, looking down at it, or in some elevated view on the side of a hill. All right, and this one, the horizon would be high. Same story, the vanishing points are on either end of the horizon and on the horizon, and then we draw the vanishing point lines down here low because the house is going to be down here. We're up here at the horizon looking down at the house. All right, then same story, we just draw the house as we did before, the face of the house following these vanishing point lines, everything on the side of the house following these vanishing point lines, including these rectangular shapes there and the chimney. Now here's something simpler. One-point perspective. It's ideal for street scenes and or paintings where you're looking towards one particular point. I've got a preliminary sketch here in which I show you, I have a few little buildings in there, and it's a street scene, but I'm going to show you where the vanishing point is and where the lines are. All right, so here we have the buildings in here, and the horizon, no matter, even though we can't see the horizon, you must put it in there, either draw it in or bear in mind mentally where it is. Where it's going to be is right about here. All right, so this is where the horizon would be here. That blue line will be it. All right, the vanishing point is going to only have one now, and that's going to be right here. Okay, now there are going to be lines coming out from that, so okay, let's just draw them in there. All of these, just as if it were a sunburst. You don't need to draw as many of them as I'm drawing in here. This is just to give you an idea of what you should be doing. I could do it with fewer, and so could you, probably. All right? Now here's where the buildings are. Here's where the vanishing point is, right there. There are the lines. Okay, so now what do? Well, we'll just draw the buildings in here. Here is, let's see, what do we have here? Here's a building here, all right? Horizontal line. So it follows the horizon. Okay, now here's the top edge of a building. I have to follow these vanishing lines. All I'm doing, whenever there's a line that roughly parallels these, they should be exactly parallel to them. Here's a horizontal line. It's going to follow the horizon in this case. Here's an oblique line, so it doesn't follow anything. All right, here's the edge of the building, follows this line. Here's a vertical line, doesn't follow any kind of perspective line because it's a vertical line. We never bother with vertical lines. All right, here comes another one here. All right, now here is the bottom of the buildings, okay, which is where the horizon is, so it's level. So, okay, right here, this is going to be about that angle there. All righty, let's see. What are we saying here? Here is the edge of this building. Let's put a little ledge there, all right? The ledge is going to have to follow these lines because that's what's nearest it. Here's a vertical line, so it doesn't follow anything. Let's put a little sign out here. Since it's one-point perspective, the horizontal lines are just horizontal. So there's one there. Here's a sign there. Okay, let's say here's the end of the sidewalk, so that's horizontal there. Here is the street. Okay, the street is going to have to follow this line, this horizontal line there. Here goes the street over here. There's the curb. Okay, here's the end of the street up here. All right, there's the end of the curb, a vertical line. Horizontal line over here. All right, here's the bottom edge of these buildings. They're going to follow these lines. Where is that? I don't have one drawn in here, so I'll just look at this one and that one and draw something in between. Where would it be? It would be right about here. Okay, now here's another building here, vertical line, so it's going to be about here. Here's the bottom edge of this building. Let's make it dark. There it is there. Here's the top edge, it's there. Let's say a break in the building there. Here's another one here. There's another one there. A vertical line, so it doesn't follow anything. Here's a sign. Okay, that sign's a vertical line. Vertical line is a horizontal line here, so we'll just make it horizontal. Let's make that sign stick out of the wall like this, and we'll have some name on there, say bar. That's what you might see in a cityscape. All right, here is another building, so it's a vertical line, and that comes down to here. All right, here's the top edge of this building. Has to follow these lines. See the top edge of this building? That's at that angle. Now the top edge of this building is going to be at this angle, because it's following these lines that are closest to it instead of that one. All right, here's a chimney, vertical line. Here's the top of the chimney, must follow these lines. There's a couple of pots. Here's another chimney here, vertical line, horizontal line, vertical line. So, all right, now what else would we have in here? Maybe a couple of windows. Okay, there's one line. Here's another window here, another one there. Over here, let's say there's a car on the street. All right, here's the car. Here's a window here. Here's the tires there. There's a trunk. A fender or so here. All right, what would we have? Usually a street sign that says, guess what? No parking or something, right where that car is. All right, how about a figure? Just a little simple thing. And all you have to be aware of when you're putting the figures in is that they be about the right height. We all know how high a car is, so the figures wouldn't be any higher than that. So there would be another one there for this distance. Now if we put a figure over here, see how tall these figures are here? See that vanishing point line, that vanishing point line? Now what if I wanted to put a figure over here? See that vanishing point line? That vanishing point line? That's how tall I'd want to make the figure. Comes a building. I mean the edge of the building there. All right, now here's the top edge of the building. Must follow these vanishing point lines. So here it is here. Just put a few little pieces of decoration up there on that top of the building. It's divided as this building is there, the floors are. So here's one division there. And let's see, what would be another floor? Maybe here? All right, in between these two. I want to make this a floor division right here. There's no vanishing point line. All right, just look at these two and make it go between them. So I'll start there and just go on down there between these. And it'll be at the right place. There would be windows here, as there are in all buildings. Let's put a rectangle up there, all right? Big window. Okay, the top edge of it, just like the roof, is going to follow this line. Bottom edge, going to follow this line. Okay, more windows in here because this is a building. Put a flagpole in here. Now, this is an oblique line, so it doesn't follow any of these lines. All right, now let's see. We'll put a doorway in here. Let's put another division of the stories there, about even with this, and so it must follow this line. Okay, a big plate glass window in here, let's say. All right, back here, vertical line, so we don't care about these vanishing point lines. Here's another vertical line. All right, now here's the top of it. It's a rectangular, so the top of it, being a shape, rectangular shape, must follow these vanishing point lines. All right, here's the bottom of it. It'll follow these vanishing point lines. It'll go towards that vanishing point there. All right, and then here's a plate glass window. Okay, let's have a little doorway here. Same story. This top line must follow these lines. Okay, and it's a little dark inside the doorway. And there are windows here, everywhere, as they are up here. So these buildings will be just a matter of a few horizontal shapes with windows there, a division in floors. All right, and here would be another building over here. Just have a window there, some kind of a thing like this. This window come down here. Here would be a chimney there. Here would be another one there, let's say, coming out of that building. And here would be the street. Here is our building here. All right, to make things just a little plainer, let me use a little bit of value in here. Let's say the sunlight's coming from over here, so you can tell this building from the other. This is yet another building, a little lighter. This is a roof. It's a building here. This is lit. So here is another building over here. And all of this just to make one building, the difference between one building and another, a little easier to see. This is the building on this side of the street as opposed to this building over here. So there's simple one-point perspective. Everything goes towards that one point. Here's another way to establish perspective in your paintings that has nothing to do with vanishing points. It's a simple thing. Just put the big things in the foreground and the smaller things of the same, smaller objects of the same type, smaller as they go back into the distance. So let's say we have a pile of rocks here. Okay, here, these are up in the foreground, so they're big. Here's some great big rocks. Okay, here's some grass down here, some other rocks in there. All right, now let's say that there is a stream down here. Okay, here comes the stream. Now, on the other side of the stream, we have more rocks. So those rocks have to be smaller, and greatly smaller. It's impossible to over-exaggerate the difference in size between these rocks and those on the other side. So, all right, here are the rocks on the other side. Look at the great deal of difference between them. See, these rocks are only this size. Look how big these are. The distance between this, or the difference between this size and that size. All right? With trees, the same story. Let's put these trees on this side of the stream, and they're up fairly close, so here come our trees. Look how big they are. And here's another tree next to it, fairly large. It goes all the way up. We know it's a big tree because it goes up through the top of the painting. It's just not as fat as this one. All right, and here would be another one, not the same width, but a big tree, because look how high it is. It goes up here. All right, now here is the distant horizon. Okay, and we want some more trees on that horizon. Now those trees are only this high. That's not very high. Let's put one or two of them here. Now see, those trees are only this big. See the difference between this height and that height? It's important to do that to establish perspective in your painting, or depth as it's sometimes called. Now it's true that you can make things lighter to make them go in the distance, or make them cooler, that is bluer, and make them go into the distance, but this is the most powerful way of doing it. In fact, you must have the big things in the foreground and the small ones in the background, or it doesn't matter if you make them cooler or lighter in the distance. They won't be in the distance unless they're smaller. It's particularly important when drawing with line to vary the width of the line. The reason is variation is much more interesting than something static or something that's the same. Now, you can draw using the same width of line everywhere, and true, you get the drawing done, but it's much more interesting if you vary the width of the line as you draw. Thick and thin lines. Any design involving lines is much more interesting if you vary the width of those lines. For instance, this kind of design is much more interesting because the width of those lines is varied anywhere, as opposed to a design doing the same thing but with the same thickness of line. This is much more interesting than that. So when you're drawing, always think thick and thin lines, thick and thin lines. A handy way to, if you can't think of an excuse to make some lines thick and some thin, you can do this. You can say, all right, the sunlight's over here, and when you're drawing, those lines that are into the sun would be thin. Here's a rock. Those lines out of the sun might be thicker. Now that gives you an excuse for thick and thin lines. Here's a tree. The side of the tree into the sun might be thin. The side of the tree out of the sun might be thick. It's particularly important in any drawing to get the silhouette of the object correct. This is the most important part of the drawing. In fact, to the novice artist just learning to draw, it would be much better to concentrate on this, just the silhouettes, and maybe a few little lines in the interior, as opposed to all of the shading and all of those things, which you might do if you're thinking this is the way to learn to draw. All right? So here's the silhouette of this shape. And I've got thick and thin lines in here. Thin lines where it's facing the light. Let's say the light's coming from over here. So wherever this is facing up or into the light, the lines are thin. So my excuse for thick lines now are these lines that are out of the light, away from the light. There, 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 and along the bottom of the shape where there isn't much light. All right, now, this is the most important part. It's nice to get this, the interior of it in, but if I don't have that silhouette done correctly, it really doesn't matter what I do with this interior. It's not going to look right. We can draw forever just using lines, just thick and thin lines. And they'll make nice looking pieces, but it's a help upon occasion to show a light side or a dark side of a shape. We can do that easily with the pencil by just bearing down on with pencil lines and keeping them close together, bearing down hard. That'll give us a dark shape. So if we wanted a dark shape up here, we could do it that way. Or if we wanted something to be a little lighter, same thing, but not as much pressure, and that gives us a mid-value. So if some of this were to be mid-value, same thing, but not quite as much pressure. Or we could make it very light, with very little pressure at all. Okay, so here would be a light area on the rock. Or we could use the edge of the pencil. You see it's pretty broad there rather than the point, and that gives us big broad lines. So we could cover big broad areas of the shape with that. And doing the same thing, bearing down gives us a dark line. Less pressure, a mid-value line. Very little pressure, and a very light line. Now with a pen or a marker, we have to use a crosshatch technique. And the reason is, you can't bear down, you can't use the side of it. So everything must be done with this little crosshatch technique, like this. If you keep the lines close together, they'll be dark. In fact, I can go back over again and make it very, very dark. Solid, in fact. All right, now if we want it to be a little less dark, then we'll put some distance between the lines. Now it's less dark. All right, to make it lighter still, a lot of distance between the lines. Okay, we don't have to do it vertically, you can do it at an angle. Same thing. That's a dark area. Now we want some of this area to be not quite so dark. Okay, so more space between the lines. Let's make it lighter still. More space between the lines yet. You can use a crosshatch technique also. Let's have some of this going in this direction at an angle like that. Okay, now let's say that we want this part to be a little darker. Then we can come the other way with this. A crosshatch technique, which makes that a little darker. We can also use this hatch or crosshatch technique with a pencil, but we must do it with this pen. There are 4 things that show light. It's a light side, dark side, light bounce, and cast shadow. All right? So for, let's say we have a round object. Let's just show a sphere. If that sphere were out into space, what we would have is this. In the sunlight, the light were over here, we would have this. A light side and a dark side. But since this sphere is on the Earth, then there are other things around it. And these other things will reflect light. It's called indirect light, or just light bounce is another name for it. Since this thing is on the ground, then the light's going to come from here. We'll strike that. That'll be the lightest part of it. It'll go and hit something else over here, bounce back, and it'll light this part of it. To show that light here, that lighter light, then what we must do is right here at the edge, where it goes out of the light, is to make it darker. All right, if we make it darker here, where it goes out of the light, and leave this gradually lighter over here, then this gives the appearance of being sunlit and some of the light bounce lighting up this part over here. Now, if this is a round object, this edge here must be soft. It must have a soft, gradual edge to it. And if we'll do that, then this thing will appear to be a sphere. It'll appear to be round. If you give it a hard edge, leave that a hard edge, then it no longer appears to be round. It looks like it's angular. All right, now, it should also cast a shadow. So the cast shadow, of course, is going to be opposite the side where the light is. This dark part in here of this sphere is called the core of the shadow. It's darker there than it is over here. All right, for a rectangular shape, it's the same thing. It's just that that area where it goes out of the light is called a plane change accent. What that means is this is one plane, this is another plane. This plane is into the light, this plane is out of the light. So where this is into the light, then it's light. Where it goes out of the light, which starts right here at this corner, then it's darkest. Now, if we'll make it just a little lighter as we go towards this end of the building, then we have light bounce from something that's back behind the building. Now, of course, this building should also, in order to show the presence of light, we should also have a cast shadow or so in here. That's what these are. And this thing will cast a shadow. And this part right here must be darker and this must have a hard edge there. And this is called the plane change accent. I've sketched a couple of farm buildings here. Now, with what we've learned so far, let's do a finished pencil rendering of these buildings. I'll start up here at this edge, and let's see, there'll be a little line here. I want to concentrate, what I want to use most of all, or what I keep foremost in my mind, are thick and thin lines. Okay, so here's the edge of the roof, and this part of the roof is out of the light, so I'll make that line. That's an excuse to make that line a little thicker, so let's make that line a little thicker. Okay, here's the corner of the building, and let's put some kind of a piece in there. Here's another one here, and let's say there's a window up here. All right, let's make that a little thick in there, and here's a little casing in the window. This is out of the light here, so that's thicker. Out of the light there, so that's thicker. Might even be a cast shadow there. All right, let's put a window in here. What would the window look like? Well, let's see. Let's have it a little darker here for the window pane. Here's another one there. Now, this window, maybe not quite so dark, so we won't bear down so hard with the pencil. Now it's a little lighter. And the reason is variety. I've already got it this dark in here. I'll make it a little lighter in there. All right, so here's another window over here. Not quite so dark as this. Okay, now the light's coming from over there, so we're going to be able to see this sill. It's a little darker there. Certainly going to be able to see this sill underneath here, or the cast shadow from that. So a good, thick, dark line. That's an excuse for a good, thick line. Over here, I could put a line there, but you know it's there, so I'll just leave it out. All right, here's a dark shape, which is a support to this thing here. And let's have another one here. In fact, here's an easy way to do this, would be this. Let's put that in there like that. Make it dark, and I want to show some supports in there. Well, I already have enough, so what I'll do is just use my finger, make it a little darker underneath there. Okay, now it looks like those are underneath here. This is an open area here. Okay, let's have a little bit of grass out here, and this is sunlit, so we're not going to see too much of that, or it's going to be very, very light. Okay, let's see, some cast shadows in here. All right, let's say that this thing is casting a shadow. All right, we'll give it that much of a cast shadow in there. Let's say that there are some trees over here someplace, and they're also casting a shadow over here. Okay, we can do that easily enough. All right, now let's see. Underneath here, that's bound to be a little darker because it's up there where there isn't much light. So we'll make that a little darker there, gradually lighter down here. Okay, for this roof here, let's say that this is a tin roof. So there'll be sections of the tin roof. There's one there, there's another there. Let's have another one here, another there, and another here. And here's the end of the tin roof there. All right, a chimney there. Okay, we could do that. This is a long run with nothing much going on, so let's make something stick out of there. Like this. There'd be this piece here. And since this is a stack, then of course it's going to be a little darker over here, a little lighter there. It would be casting a shadow. Here's another tree. All right, let's just make that one a little darker there. Big, thick tree trunk. I don't want it to be as thick as this one, though. That would be too boring. Two tree trunks right next to each other that are the same size? No, that would be too boring. All right, let's make this a little lighter here. Okay, so we'll take that out. Finish that with this. Here's the rest of this tree over here. It's this thick. It stays that thick over there, becomes a little thinner over here. And here are a few limbs from this one will come out over here. I want to show a cast shadow on this other building over here, so let's give it a reason for a cast shadow. Some of these little limbs that are coming all the way out to here. Let's see, this part of the building is out of the light. All right, so let's put it out of the light. Let's just use a little of this vertical hatch technique there. We'll make it a little darker right here where it goes out of the light, the plane change accent there, and lighter coming up here, just using that kind of hatch technique. Will there be trees or something back here? We might have a few here. Just any little bit of an area like this might look like a tree. Look like foliage. Here's a few little lines going into it. So this gives the illusion of branches. There are leaves in here. Maybe a few sticking out over here. What else do we need in here? Really very little. I'm afraid I might have too much in there already. And so I think this would stand alone as a pencil rendering of a finished drawing. Now here's another way of rendering the same subject with markers, colored markers. My method for this was to first draw it in using this dark marker, using the nib to get the small lines in it, and bearing down a little harder to get thicker lines like that. I did the whole drawing first with this marker. Then, after it was all over, I went in with some colored markers and just briefly or very sparingly put a little bit of color in on the dark side, and I use it for cast shadows and to put a few trees in here. Using as little color as possible. It's only something to add some color to this rendering that's been done completely with dark markers. Yet another way to render a line drawing is use line and wash technique, which is to say a wash or watercolor wash and a line drawing on top of it. The trick is to make it dominantly line, just a little bit of wash, with a dominant amount of line all over it. So what I've done with this one is I use watercolor paper. It's a 140-pound cold press that I used. I did a wash over the top of it using a regular watercolor brush, as brief as possible, just a little bit of wash in here. All right. Then with this bamboo stick, using the India ink here, same one you saw earlier, cut like a fountain pen. Then I dipped that in the ink and did the drawing over the top of it. I was careful when doing the drawing to make the lines thick and thin as usual, and to miss the wash as often as possible, to make this wash overrun the line, or to make the line independent of the wash. So that here, here's the wash here, there's the line up there. Here is the wash down there, there's no line near it. Here's the wash here, there's the line up there. Here's the wash here, there's the line over there. I varied the edge of the line just by moving the stick back and forth, this bamboo stick back and forth. You see you can get a thick edge here, thick edge there like that, and then a thin one just by turning it over here like this. All right, I have in here a dominant amount of line, I believe, not quite as much wash, so I would consider that a successful job of line and wash.